One of D.C.'s most infamous drug kingpins, Rayful Edmond, is dead just months after being released from federal prison. Edmond was sentenced to life in prison in 1990 for running a multi-million-dollar cocaine ring in D.C. that led to so much violence and so many killings. It led to the district being called murder capital of the U.S. Edmond was released from prison and transferred to a halfway house at the end of July after cooperating with the FBI. His cause of death has not yet been released. He was 60 years old.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Lions Den with another news and commentary. In the late 80s and early 90s, a man named Rayful Edmond, who ran one of the most notorious drug kingpins in D.C., as you heard, has passed away at age 60. Now, I remember growing up in that era, you know, living in the DMV for 23 years. You know, I was in, believe me, I was in the I just finished middle school and started in high school. And I remember how Rayful Edmonds just, you know, basically one of the most notorious kingpins. He's like the Nino Brown of DC. This guy worth $300 million. And then the feds basically, you know, finally, you know, got him. I remember lots of stories about him. The feds got him, and then they raided his home. They raided his mother's home, and at the time, and so he spent, you know, life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. And this guy is like a hero to most people in DC, right? So it's crazy that you have to remember a guy like him. Now, I would give a shout out to Waukesha for the community on TikTok for the story. And see, with this brother right here, people are fearing him at the time in the late 80s, early 90s. He's the reason why he brought crack to the DMV, really to DC alone. And I remember Orland Place in Northeast, which is like near Florida Avenue Northeast. I used to go to school at, you know, the deaf school at Gallaudet University, which is like a block away from Orland Place. So to me, you know, remember a guy like Rayful Edmond, and to most of the people that live in DC, even though he was a drug kingpin, he was a hero to others. And everybody thought, like Nino Brown, that he was Mr. Untouchable. But when you have, you know, when the feds took him down along with his associates, you know, when he served life imprisonment, you know, it broke some people's hearts, you know, and when he was released from prison decades later, you know, he was happy. He was happy-go-lucky. I think he went to a go-go concert. You know, he was being himself. And all of a sudden now, at age 60, this man was, you know, deleted. Things could have happened to him. And I know that he was a healthy man. He never had any health problems at all, as far as I know. And to me, it's shocking to hear of what happened to him. It's really, really shocking. So my thoughts and prayers go to his family. And this guy who's one of the most feared men in DC is no longer here. And this is mainly the reason why that at that time, DC was the murder capital of the world in the late 80s, early 90s. You know, I moved to the DMV, I remember in like late 87, late 88. And I was like 13 years old. I was 12 years old at the time. And and I remember we heard a story about Rayful Edmond. People who I know or I've heard of speaking about the brother. So he was well known. Everybody, if you don't live in Washington D.C., Maryland, or Virginia, if you don't know who this guy is, then you might not even live in D.C. long, because if you were there in the late 80s and early 90s, everybody knows who this brother is. Everybody. And I remember people are too scared to even go to D.C. because, you don't know what would have happened if he or his associates would have been around. So it's crazy. So RIP to Rayful Edmonds, but that is crazy. And basically, some people who love and adore him, he will be missed. Let me know what you think in the comments.